Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sunday's edition of Weekend Waypoints, production of SEC Extra and D1Baseball.com. I'm your host, Joe Healy, here to recap Saturday around the SEC, a particularly busy Saturday around the SEC, what with the doubleheaders and what have you. Also, going to preview a little bit of Sunday's action. Before we get to any of that, though, it's important I let you know that this episode of Weekend Waypoints and every episode of Weekend Waypoints this season is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Get ready for a new season of fishing fun with Academy Sports and Outdoors, and reel in the best gear at low prices every day. Plus, Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time, like free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Yeah, fun Saturday in the SEC. Started early with Auburn and Georgia playing their doubleheader. I believe that was a noon start or some such. It was as I was kind of moving around doing things, and ended late with LSU Mississippi State, a game that didn't start until, here on the East Coast, didn't start till something like 9:30 Eastern time. So a bit of a late finish there at Alec Box Stadium. So long day of SEC baseball, but a fun day of SEC baseball. Let's get to our game of the day quickly, and then I see comments already coming in, so we'll get to those in just a second. Let's talk game of the day, though. As always, I will share my screen out here. It is Georgia 9, Auburn 6, in 10 innings. That was game 2 of the doubleheader between the two teams. It was more offensive, the doubleheader was, than the Friday game, but still maybe not quite the offensive explosion that we would have imagined. But really good performances by Georgia here to get the sweep. If you're Auburn, you feel, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you were right there like the entire series. You didn't get run off the field in any way, shape, or form, and yet you got swept, and that's always a tough pill to swallow. You always like to salvage, and they had a big opportunity to do that here and just couldn't get it done. As we go down to the scoring summary here, you'll see they tie it in the 9th inning on an Ike Irish ground out. With the help of an error for Auburn there. And then in the 10th, Bub Terrell homers to give Auburn a 2-run lead. And you're thinking, okay, that's an impressive fight. Like, looks like they're going to salvage a game. And then some trouble in the bottom of the 10th inning. Georgia loads the bases. Jet Johnston comes in out of the Auburn bullpen, gets a little dribbler back to the mound, throws it away, 2 runs scored. And then that tied it. And then Daniel Jackson, a 3-run home run to right field to walk it off for a 9-6 win. 5 runs scored, not a single out recorded in that inning. So not a great ending there. But just a hard-fought sweep for Georgia, a tough luck sweep in a lot of ways for Auburn. If that play gets made in the 10th, who knows how the rest of that inning goes. That it was probably hit too slowly to be a 1-2-3 double play, but you would have at least got the run coming home. And so maybe it's a little bit different. Jet Johnston certainly has good stuff. So, could have gotten himself out of that inning. Obviously they didn't, and Georgia gets the win. Look now, Georgia is 28-2, 8-1 in the league. But 28-2 is just like a particularly gaudy record to look at, as is. So, off to an incredible start, obviously. And they're starting to come around the mound a little bit. The offense is always going to be there. Obviously, a 4-1 win Friday, that was the most impressive part on the mound. But even the doubleheader games yesterday did a pretty nice job not letting Auburn get too hot offensively and doing enough of their own offensively. So big win there for Georgia. All right, close out. Let's look at some comments, why don't we? We're going to start with Caleb Falk. Morning, Joe. Good morning, Caleb. Good to hear from you again. Good weekend for the Tigers getting the sweep. That's the LSU Tigers. Caleb's an LSU guy. Get some guy. He's rested for Oklahoma next week. Newt was the only pitcher solid out of the pen. Need others to step up for better competition. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like, you'll take a sweep in this league against any opponent, much less a good one like Mississippi State. I think they're better than their record in the league. So you'll take it however you get it. But yeah, if you want to nitpick, I'll go there with you. Like, I think they're going to need more out of their bullpen. That was a game yesterday, 17-8 final. And you'd like that to not in a game like that, you'd like there to not be 8 runs by the opposition. Although I get it. I get that maybe you were throwing some guys and giving guys more leash than you would have in a game that was closer. So maybe that's part of it. But I'm with you. Like, it felt like strike throwing in particular out of the bullpen is going to be something to watch for LSU moving forward. I mean, Case and Evans looks great. There's a couple other guys that, I'm sure, you look at the numbers and they've been fine. But yeah, there has been some guys that need to be a little more consistent and throw more strikes. Good morning, vis-a-vis. I see you there. Rick says Gackle looked good for the Hogs. Yeah, he sure did. I'd have to go back and look at his game by game, but it might be his best start this season when you consider the opponent and all that. Yeah, but if he's that, they'll take that. Arkansas will take that absolutely with his stuff. I'll still be interested to see, when Gage Wood comes back and is ready to be back in the rotation. I mean, it does give them a little bit of a decision to make. Do you move Beidelshees back to the midweek role, or do you maybe consider, even if he's pitching well, moving Gackle back to the bullpen, just given how dominant he was there last year? And if you trust Beidelshees, and if Gage Wood really is 100% healthy, that's still a good rotation with Zach Root there. And then maybe Gackle will be more comfortable in a bullpen role. I don't think there's a wrong answer there, especially given that the Gackle has appeared to be rounding into form a little bit more so. We'll see, obviously. Good morning, Todd. Says another cup of Joe for Weekend Waypoints. Good morning. Good morning, Todd. Good win for the Cats yesterday. We'll talk about that. Carl Dunn says, good morning. Nice sweep by the Tigers. Yeah, game ended at 1:45 a.m. Central. Woof. Yeah, that game was moving slow, too. That's the thing. Not only did it start late, so it was always going to end late, but it was moving real slow. I mean, whatever it was for the LSU in the first inning, an 8-run inning, like that'll do it. That'll get the game off to a slow start when a team has to go to the bullpen in the first. Oh yeah, you said 8 runs there in your comment. Bullpen got a little hit up, but finished the job. Good start by 8 runs in the first. Yeah, I was long gone because I'm here on the East Coast. 2:45 a.m. I was long gone at that point. I was like, you know what? I feel confident LSU is going to hold on to this thing. Well, I'll check in the morning, and sure enough, thankfully I didn't. I didn't miss anything too crazy there when I gave up on that game for the night. Todd Harris, I don't feel bad for Auburn. The Tigers were given games at UK last weekend. When you don't make the basic plays, you lose games. What goes around comes around. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. It's a tough business, You don't make plays, you lose games. Yeah, that's totally a fair critique there. Nedland 31. I saw the post game where you were asking Coach Vitello questions. The reporters didn't have mics, so the questions weren't clear. What was he referencing? He, quote, didn't want to answer at the office. I'd ask him. I had asked him about Andrew Fisher's defense, because Andrew Fisher made a couple nice plays defensively at first base, and we know the perception and the reality of Andrew Fisher is that he's not Brooks Robinson over at third base, or Nolan Arenado, if you want a more modern reference. He's not Christian Walker at first base, right? In terms of defensive ability, but it looked like he, maybe made some strides. And so I asked him about strides he made there, and Coach Vitello said he didn't want to talk about it at the office, is what he said. Then he talked. He did make a good point after that about just like how difficult it's been to configure the infield, and how he had to have a frank conversation with Dean Curley and Gavin Keelan in the offseason about, hey, I would love to have you guys, but I don't know where you're going to play. Like, both of you can't play shortstop, right? So he said it was a great conversation, though. Those guys are big team guys, and it's worked out swimmingly. And, of course, now Keelan's hurt. He did pinch hit yesterday, but Keelan is on the mend, but has been out. So it has made things alleviated a little bit. You've been able to get Ariel Antigua into the lineup more consistently, and he made a great defensive play yesterday on a ball in the hole. So, some of it has kind of worked itself out because Keelan's missed some time, but Keelan will be back to full strength at some point, and, he'll be back to moving some pieces around, and those guys have handled it well. Joey, okay, I'm glad you mentioned this. He said, I'm the one that said hi from the seats after the game. Hey, Joey. It was good to meet you. Good to be able to wave at you there. Glad this one got bumped up to noon. Let's get that sweep and get out of here. Yeah, for those who have not heard, the South Carolina-Tennessee finale bumped to noon Eastern time. It was supposed to be that 5 o'clock Eastern window game that the SEC has had the first few weeks of conference play. There's just the rain chances are too prominent to risk it, because that's a late enough game that even a little rain delay pushes it back to the end of that game, to well after dark, if you have any sort of delay. And I'm assuming, Tennessee's trying to get back tonight, so it does make it logistically tough. So just not worth waiting around, um, and trying to get the game in earlier instead. Rod Hagen says the Whistler ruined a great game. Have to watch with no volume. I will say you're not the only one who makes a habit of watching Vanderbilt home games with no volume. That is fairly commonplace there, for better or for worse. Rhett Moore says Aiden Jimenez. Wow. Yeah. Speaking of Arkansas stuff, yeah, he's real. Like, he was coming on last year. I was talking to Mike Rooney about this because Mike Rooney follows the West Coast closely because he lives in Arizona. And he said, he was coming on for Oregon State last year, and just because of the way the season worked out, by the time he really got ramped up, season was over. He just never got a chance to like fully show what he could do. And so when Arkansas took him, it was kind of, at least for me, because I didn't know the backstory, it was kind of like, okay, like I don't really know what to expect here. And we're now seeing that like he's real, like that guy's good, and he's going to be a piece for them. And I wasn't sure he would be, and he is. So kudos to the coaching staff for, finding him, scouting him, bringing him in, understanding what he could do, and now it's paying off. Jeremy Scott he says roll Tide, basketball season over. Yeah, tough one last night for the Tide men's basketball. Rubber games today in baseball and softball. That is a big game against Oklahoma on the baseball diamond. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Jamie Roberts says Hogs are fun to watch this year. Love this team. I agree, Jamie. I think they are fun, which has not necessarily been the case the last couple of years. Sometimes it's been fun to watch Hagen Smith pitch. It's been fun to watch, Gackle out of the bullpen last year, on and on the mound. But yeah, offensively, it was kind of ugly sometimes. So this team is a lot more fun to watch. Was Florida's comeback winning game 2 of the doubleheader on Friday what they needed to get their confidence back? I think it might have been. It may be. We'll see. I know that's kind of a boring answer, but we'll just have to see. It could be, but I'm inclined to still be skeptical of that, Eric, just because it's not like it was a particularly pretty win. It wasn't a pretty series. Like, it didn't feel like they played that well in general. But sometimes all it takes is one win to kind of get things going back in the right direction. We'll see. Caleb Fox is not sure about Shore's health after the liner he took to the face. Stayed in for a little while, then Jade took him out. Yeah, he did. Chase Shores did take a line drive off his face, which doesn't not fun. Goes without saying. Yeah, we'll just have to see on that, because he wasn't taken out immediately. I have to imagine there obviously weren't any like serious medical issues that needed immediate attention. So that's good at a bare minimum. But yeah, we'll have to see if there are any kind of lingering effects there. If you'll excuse me, I'm gonna take a swig of my coffee before it gets too cold here. You can do the same if you got your cup with you. There's a solidarity swig to each other there. Let's see. Scrolling. Corey Moulton asks, we letting LeBron just stand on third like a little kid and interfering with the runner? I know the guy is good, but come on, that cost a run yesterday. We have the rule if you don't. Why have the rule if you don't enforce it? I will admit, Corey, I did not see that play. I'll have to go back and look. Because, yeah, certainly, you got to enforce the rule, regardless of how talented the player is. But I have to admit, I did not see that. During that game, I was getting to the ballpark at South Carolina and setting up and stuff, so I wasn't locked in. It wasn't locked in on that game at the time. It was coming down to the wire there because we were getting ready to start. So I'll have to research that and figure it out. This comment on X says, "Help us." The player is wearing a Miami hat in the photo. This is not an ACC show, but tough season for Miami there. All right, Hunt Palmer says 4 hours and 4 minutes. Don't ask how I know. I won't, Hunt. I won't bring that up. I won't. We'll just leave that as it is. I won't bring that up again. Definitely won't bring it up on air on Thursday on your show. Todd says my Cats, that's the Kentucky Wildcats, finally closed out a game with offense and got a much needed win versus A&M. It was rough giving up a 7-1 lead on Friday A win today and series win will be big momentum with 2 home series coming. Yeah, it feels like a big swing game between A&M and Kentucky. Eric asked about does Florida's win against Ole Miss and that doubleheader, does that create some momentum, get them going in the right direction? Well, we saw that with A&M, they got kind of a similar win, kind of ugly, had to come back, had to scratch and claw, and then it didn't seem to count for much, right? You're back in another rock fight on Saturday, and Kentucky outlasts you. So for A&M, like this is a big game at home, and for Kentucky, for Kentucky, you need to help the math be in your favor by winning some road games and getting a road series win, even against an A&M that's clearly not as good as we thought they were going to be, counts as a big one. So yeah, I'm with you, Todd. On X, how long until Josh Elander gets a head coaching job at a major school? I would say not long. I don't know this for fact, but I'd have to imagine if he just wanted any head coaching job, even at a fairly high level, he wouldn't still be there. I'm sure there have been options for him. There will continue to be options for him, but he's in a good enough spot where, he's coaching this team that is on this incredible run right now. They've got a chance to win another national title this year, and really, if they continue to roster build like this, they've got a chance to win national titles in most years after this. So he doesn't have to just make a move just because he wants to be a head. I'm sure he wants to be a head coach. But he can be choosy, and that's a good place to be when you feel like you're well compensated, you're appreciated, you're in a winning program, you're on a staff that's loyal to its coaches, the players stick around. Like there's a lot going for him in his current. They're about to get that new facility finished, which is just cool, right? You're coaching in a cool new spot, so he will be a head coach at some point. I would say sooner rather than later, but you don't be surprised if he hangs around at Tennessee longer than you would think, just because, he can be choosy about where he wants to go. Sam Smith says South Carolina just can't get over the hump. I would agree. They actually played pretty well yesterday, and they even fought Tennessee on Friday. 11-7 is probably closer than the game really was, but still, they put up some runs. And then yesterday, yeah, they were in that game, and it wasn't even really self-inflicted wounds. It'd be one thing if it's like, they just gave that game away. It's like, no, Tennessee just beat them yesterday. I wrote about that in my story about how it just felt like Tennessee's national title DNA just kind of kicked in and just decided, no, we're not losing this game. But they were there. Like, South Carolina just doesn't have the dudes right now. They play hard. They're playing pretty well. They're just not talented enough against these upper level SEC teams right now. There's some good things. I see some good individual things happening. It's just they just don't have enough. Sam also says Ariel Antigua at shortstop is when Tennessee is at their best. I mean, certainly defensively. Like, that guy is a wizard at shortstop and a lot of fun to watch. Sam also asked, does it starting at noon get the game in? It should, based on what I've seen and what I've heard weather-wise. Obviously, no guarantee this time. Springtime in the Southeast. Like, you never know. But I would think so, yes. Lindsey Crosby says Auburn has no one to blame but their own offense for the sweep. They held UGA to 24 runs. I mean, that's about as good as you can expect. When that same roster put up 36 and 40 in the last 2 weekends, can't ask for the staff to do more. Yeah, I guess I'm with you, Lindsey. Like, just didn't do enough offensively, and some of that is Georgia's always had stuff, right? I mean, they came in kind of struggling on the mound, but it's not for a lack of stuff and arm strength and all that. So. Yeah, so disappointing that Auburn doesn't get a game, but yeah, I mean, it's fair. You're when you hold Georgia to a relatively low number, which is so funny, 24 runs, counting as a relatively low number, but it's true. You'd like to get a game there for sure. Eric says, who's been more disappointing, Texas A&M or Florida? I would say Texas A&M. Yeah, just because they were the number one team. I'd agree with that. Jim Dillingham, the OU-Bama series has had great games. Looking forward to the rubber match. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rubber match. I'm going to be driving back from Columbia back home, so I'm planning on listening to that game. As I make that drive. Corey Moulton says, nice to see OU offense more than hanging with Bama when OU pitching hasn't been sharp. Yeah, I agree. Like, if you'd have told me before the season, if you'd have read off some of the stat lines of some of the pitching in games that Oklahoma has won, I would have been a little bit worried about it just because we didn't know what they'd get offensively. But yeah, the offense has done the offense has done a nice job, like really like keeping Oklahoma in games. It's not, it's not the Tennessee lineup or the Georgia lineup or the Arkansas lineup or anything like that. But yeah, it's a above average lineup right now, and they're keeping Oklahoma in games, and they're winning close games, and that's part of what's helped. That's part of what's helped Oklahoma be as successful as they have, is they just seem to have this knack for grinding out wins and doing just enough. All right, I'm scrolling here because we have some repetitive questions. Canes Cat Seat 305 says Josh Elander to Miami. He also asked about Nolan Cain getting a head coaching job. That's another guy I'm assuming at some point will have one sooner rather than later. Todd Harris says, if I'm an AD at a Power 4 school, Skylar Meade at Troy is the top of my list to hire a new head coach. He can recruit and coach. Yeah, and it has good experience at a lot of different places. Like he's coached at Michigan State and he coached at South Carolina, and obviously now he has Troy. Troy playing well. Go Vols Expo, I see you there. Kings Cats Heats asked about the Georgia Tech job. I would expect James Ramsey there. He's been kind of the associate head coach of Danny Hall, the right-hand man, for a long time now. They're recruiting well. He's the recruiting coordinator. So I would expect it to be James Ramsey. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. Matt Hobbs to Mizzou if they make a change. Matt Hobbs, another guy that will certainly be in in a head coaching job sooner rather than later if he wants it. Mark Heflin says, until Mizzou invests in baseball, why would a top assistant or top school go there? That is correct, Mark. I think that is the issue with Mizzou is, whether or not you believe in Carrick and what they're doing there. And I know the results haven't been good this year, but just changing the head coach is not going to be enough. To get that turned around. So just too much working against him right now. And Mark and I have said it on Highway to Hoover that if you're Mizzou, if you're Mizzou, you got to give them something. You got to help them somehow. Like, okay, maybe you can't build a whole new stadium or you can't do a massive renovation, but can you do some little things, right? A little more NIL money out there. Can we maybe do a little more with, premium seating areas for fans, right? Or at a bare minimum, can we, put the retired numbers on the wall instead of on the football facility behind the right center field wall? Just like little stuff that just, but yeah, until Mizzou gives some external help there, it's hard to imagine anybody short of, the top handful of coaches in college baseball who wouldn't take the Mizzou job. It's hard to imagine anybody but them, being able to do much of anything there. So, interesting stuff. All right. Let me get over to my hitters here. We're going to do hitter and pitcher of the day. Great comments, by the way. A lot of them. There were actually a few I had to skip past because we're already at 23 minutes. So apologies if I didn't answer every last question there, respond to every last comment. We ended up running long there, which is great. I love the comments. That's my favorite part. I don't want that to change, but just meant I had to skip over a few more today. All right. Hitter of the day, you see it highlighted there, Tyler Bell of Kentucky, the hitter of the day for me in a 14-11 win over Texas A&M, 4-for-4 with a double, a home run, and 4 runs batted in. And part of why I highlight him is obviously it's a great day, but also it gives me a chance to talk about that it's so hard to be what he was expected to. Like, it's so hard to have as much fanfare as he did coming in to college baseball and live up to it. And so far, there's been some freshman moments. I think we all remember the dropped pop-up, right? That's just baseball, but he's been everything and more that Kentucky could have wanted, especially at the plate. And that was kind of a question, how would the bat translate? And so far the answer is really, really well. So 4-for-4 day yesterday gives him the hitter of the day designation. A lot of other options though here. Starting with that Auburn, Georgia game, we had Bristol Carter for Auburn, 2-for-3 with a homer, a walk, and a stolen base. A guy who really, he was probably among the biggest reasons for optimism about the Auburn lineup going into the season after a great freshman year at East Carolina. just hasn't clicked for him. Perhaps this is the start of something for him, a 2-for-3 day there in game 1 of the doubleheader. You see in game 2 of the doubleheader, Bub Terrell, still fighting that pronunciation, Bub Terrell, 3-for-5 with a double and a home run in game 2 there. He had that home run, of course, was the go-ahead home run in the 10th that unfortunately did not, unfortunately for Auburn, did not hold on. Georgia, Christian Adams in game 1 of the doubleheader, 2-for-3 with a homer, 2 walks, 4 runs batted in. He's really heating up. He's giving Georgia another dangerous bat in that lineup as if they needed it. Nolan McCarthy in game 1, 3-for-4 with a homer and a steal. And in game 2, Slade Alford, 3-for-4 with a double and a walk. For Oklahoma, and that went over Alabama, 2-for-3 with a walk for Trey Gamble, who's continues to be a catalyst. Missed a little bit of time there, but has been back for a bit now and continues to be a big-time catalyst. Bryce Fowler on the other end for Alabama, talking about guys who were off to slow starts. I think until yesterday, he had something like 2 hits in SEC play, period, full stop. And he got 3 yesterday, 3-for-4 in that game yesterday. Will Gasparino for Texas in game 1 of the doubleheader against Missouri, which Texas swept, 2-for-4, 2 home runs, 3 runs batted in. I believe 4 home runs on the weekend for Gasparino, 5 in the week. A heck of a week there, has a chance to be the SEC player of the week given that performance. And Tyler Macon for Missouri, 2-for-3, 2 doubles. Missouri continues to get pretty good offensive production from some guys that you weren't necessarily expecting. The offense has been better than I anticipated, but still looking for that first SEC win. It's tough when you're kind of stuck in one of those cycles. For A&M, Bear Harrison, 4-for-5, 2 doubles, a home run, and 4 runs batted in. I believe that is Bear Harrison's first appearance on this list. Heck of a day. And then I put Caden Sorrell on here just kind of because it's his first game back. He hit a home run in his first game back. So obviously the A&M lineup going to be a little bit better, a little bit deeper with him back in the lineup. We'll see how much difference it ultimately ends up making, but certainly it makes the Aggies better. Andrew Fisher for Tennessee, 2-for-4 with that home run to give them to tie that game back up, I believe. Maybe gave him a lead. There was a lot of back and forth there late in that game. And I mentioned the nice defensive plays. Bo Hollins for South Carolina, 4-for-4. I mentioned there's some good things happening there. Bo Hollins is a part of that 4-hit game yesterday. JUCO transfer Jace Woida has swung the bat pretty decent for them. So there are some positive things happening with South Carolina. They're just not quite enough guys on any given day for them to compete with the top of the SEC right now. And then we get to the nightcap. LSU, 4 guys here because when you put up 17 runs, chances are you're going to have some guys on this list. Jared Jones, Daniel Dickinson, Luis Hernandez, Chris Stanfield, all of whom had 3 hits on the day. Jared Jones also added 2 walks. He had a home run. He scored 3 runs. Big day for him. Nolan Stevens on the Mississippi State side, 2-for-4 with a double and a home run. But Tyler Bell, the hitter of the day after that 4-for-4 game. We're going to go right into pitcher here. The pitcher today is Ruger Riojas for Texas. Game 2 of the doubleheader against Missouri, 7 shutout innings with no walks and 10 strikeouts. Yes, you can apply the, quote, only Missouri filter there, but still impressive stuff for a guy who hasn't been in the rotation. I think this is Texas kind of getting to a point where it's like, hey, we just need to have our best arms on the mound. And Riojas is one of them and really showed well. And I think he probably earned himself a chance to continue in that role moving forward for Texas. But a heck of a performance there. Also in game 1 of the doubleheader, Texas's Max Grubbs in relief with 3 shutout innings after Luke Harrison got hit around a little bit. Also didn't get a lot of help from his defense. Max Grubbs really kind of helped clean that game up and allow the game to swing back towards the Longhorns dugout there. Carson Myers of Auburn, good relief performance, really kind of a dominant relief performance. 4 2/3 shutout innings, no walks, 10 strikeouts there. 10 of his 14 outs recorded via strikeout, which, he's not typically a huge strikeout guy. So that's impressive stuff there. Georgia in game 2 of the doubleheader on the other side. Matthew Hoskins, 3 shutout innings in relief. Cade Crossland against Alabama, really good start. 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts there for Crossland. Good stuff there from him. Gabe Gackel, we mentioned him with a nice start. 5 2/3, 2 runs scored. Didn't walk anybody. That's key that he didn't walk anybody. 7 strikeouts. In relief, Sawyer Hawks of Vanderbilt. 4 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 run. He continues to be a very solid piece of the Vanderbilt bullpen. And Jarvis Evans Jr., the Georgia transfer to South Carolina, gave up the 3-run home run to Reese Chapman early in the game, but that was really all he gave up. 6 strong innings. One walk, 5 strikeouts. He can be kind of fun to watch pitch too, because he's not up there throwing at 95. It's like a 86 to 88 mile an hour fastball with a slider and a change, but the off speed stuff is pretty good, and he's kind of funky, and his fastball has got the induced vertical break on it. His changeup has a lot of fade on it, so it's just a different look. And when he's on, he can give teams a lot of trouble. And I thought he did a really nice job yesterday against that Tennessee lineup. All right, we have a whole bunch of comments here. I'm going to scroll through them very quickly, and then we're going to talk game of the day today. Oh boy, I'm scrolling. My goodness, have a big backlog here. All right, think we're good there. We did have a question from Walker Yaw. Says, will Sankey, that's Greg Sankey, ever force Mizzou's hand into investing? Probably not in baseball, honestly. Because it's just not. Yes, it's a prominent sport for the SEC, but it's not football or men's and women's basketball. So probably not. But we'll see. Certainly the investment needs to happen regardless, but I don't think it's going to come from the commissioner's office, frankly. All right, game of the day today, Oklahoma at Alabama. Should be a fun rubber game. I mentioned I'm going to be, kind of locked into that as I'm driving back home today. Malachi Witherspoon on the mound for Oklahoma, maybe Riley Quick for Alabama. I've not seen anything on that this morning, but dealt with a blood blister last week. This week was not in the initial rotation. I assume if he's ready to go, we'll see him, even if it's for a shorter outing, but it's going to be a staff day for Alabama, I think, largely, regardless of who ends up on the mound to start. And then I mentioned it earlier, Oklahoma's made a habit of winning, just grinding out wins and winning series. And that's so important in this league, because there's going to be days where the game's, it's not pretty, right? A lot of runs scored. Maybe it doesn't go well on the mound. Maybe you made an ill-timed error. And in this league, it seems like everybody has to pay for their errors. So you're going to have to be able to win some games where things don't go according to script. And Oklahoma's done a nice job of that so far this year. So I like their chances against Alabama in Tuscaloosa, but feels like a coin flip game for me. It really does. So looking forward to that. All right, everyone, enjoy the baseball today. I hope it's a little dreary out the window here where I am in Columbia. I hope the weather is nice where you are, and we'll get all the games in today. A little bit lighter, just because we had, the Thursday to Saturday series. We had a couple double headers that ended traditional series a little bit early. So a little bit lighter Sunday, but hopefully that allows us all to lock in on the games that are really, really fun across the SEC. I will talk to you guys Friday morning previewing the weekend. Talk to you then. Enjoy the baseball today, everyone. See ya.